Hey everyone, Brian here, and I am back with another episode of Nerd Theater. This time I'm going to be once again talking about Sonic and his sequel film, Sonic the Hedgehog 2. So, with the success of the first movie, Paramount Pictures and Sega decided to go full steam ahead with a follow-up. And of course, with the end credits of the first movie kind of teasing Tails' appearance in a possible sequel film, it showed quite a bit of promise and quite a bit of confidence from the team in the project of the first movie itself. And everything went according to plan, everything went well, and so they released a follow-up sequel in 2022. And just right off the bat, I want to say, I think this is the better movie of the two so far. I think it improves on almost every possible aspect that the first one had, and not to say that the first film is a bad movie by any means, but a lot of my criticisms and gripes with the first movie were more or less alleviated in this film. And what do I mean by that? Well, before I get into more story details and whatnot, I just think this movie feels a lot more like a Sonic adventure. There are several scenes throughout the course of this movie, much more so than the first one, that just straight up feel like you're watching a Sonic game or a Sonic story play out. I feel like Paramount and Sega really took a look at what audience members enjoyed about the first movie and honed in on that. A la Godzilla vs. Kong and like the Monsterverse and movies that take place in that cinematic universe. What do I mean by that? Well, look at movies like the original Godzilla, the one from I think 2014 with Bryan Cranston. That movie was a lot more stripped down, a lot more grounded. It was kind of almost more of a drama than it was a Godzilla movie. I know that movie is kind of infamous for teasing Godzilla more than actually showing him. I thought it worked well for the most part, but there's a clear separation between that movie and what its sequels attempted to do later. In that there was a lot more of a focus on the monsters and a lot less of a focus on the human characters. I think the same is true in the Sonic the Hedgehog 2 movie. I think there's a lot more of a focus on Sonic and his friends, what their adventures are, and there's much less of a focus on characters like Thomas and Maddie, who I think are strong enough characters on their own, but their absence in large chunks of this movie allow Sonic and the gang to really shine here. So getting right into the story, Dr. Robotnik is still trapped in Mushroom World, and he is slowly going crazy. It kind of feels like Jim Carrey's Robotnik in the movie Castaway if it took place on a mushroom planet. He's got this little rock that he's painted a face on to look like his partner, Agent Stone. He's talking to himself. He's shaved his head, which, like I was saying in the last movie, the first film was kind of a Robotnik Sonic origin story, and this film really starts to unravel Dr. Robotnik into the evil, maniacal Eggman character we all know and love. And the bald head in the start of the movie is kind of a symbol for that. He's really starting to find his footing into the nefarious arch nemesis of our main hero. But, as what should come as a surprise to no one, Dr. Robotnik finds a way out of Mushroom World. However, the means in which he does so may come as a surprise to some. He's actually saved by Knuckles the Echidna, and what happens is an Echidna tribe portals using one of those rings from the first film into the Mushroom World and starts attacking. Dr. Robotnik's able to fend off for a little while, and it eventually leads him into meeting Knuckles the Echidna. And the two have a kind of common goal. Robotnik wants to escape Mushroom World, Knuckles wants to get out of there, but they both have a desire to find the Master Emerald. And through some manipulation, Robotnik gets Knuckles to agree to partner with him, unbeknownst to Knuckles, who will most likely, he's probably gonna be betrayed at one point or another. And so that's what starts off this movie, and that's how this movie raises the stakes and doubles the conflict by making a Eggman-Knuckles team up. But back to our main hero. Sonic is still living with Tom and Maddie, and he's become a much more core member of their little family they've got going on. And he's also trying to double down on being a local hero, with varying results of success. Tom is actually, meanwhile, trying to teach Sonic to be more responsible. Sonic, of course, is keeping his little shenanigans as a vigilante more or less secret from Tom, who, of course, is a police officer. So it's kind of a conflict of interest thing going on. But Tom is wise to it, and he takes Sonic out on a little fishing trip to talk to him about responsibility. Very much an Uncle Ben moment, if you will. In fact, a lot of the start of this movie reminds me of a Spider-Man film, especially those Tobey Maguire ones, in which he's starting up as a hero. He doesn't really know what he's doing yet. He's learning the ropes. He knows that he wants to do good. However, not everyone sees it that way. For example, local townspeople, some of the police, even some of the people Sonic saves, are not really receptive to him yet. I mean, he's still kind of an unknown. He's a blue alien hedgehog creature, and people are going to be slow to accept that. But this movie very quickly lets us know that it's going to be taking us on quite a different adventure than the first movie. Sonic sends Tom and Maddie away to Hawaii via a ring portal in order to celebrate Maddie's sister Rachel's wedding. And so right off the bat, this movie separates Sonic from Tom and Maddie, and that stays pretty consistent throughout the runtime of the movie. And I think that's what makes this movie operate better as a Sonic-heavy film. So where does that leave Sonic? Well, he's got the house to himself for 48 hours, so it's going to be kind of just a chill, Home Alone type experience, Ixnay on the robbers, right? Well, not quite. Miles Tails Prower himself portals into Green Hills, Montana with the sole intention of finding Sonic somehow. And they do this by reusing that same end credits scene we saw from the first movie. I don't know if they touched this up at all for the new movie, but it was a nice way to kind of reuse some footage and recontextualize it in a pretty interesting way. For example, I didn't realize that Tails was on the hunt for Sonic so late into the game. I kind of figured it was right after the events of the first movie. That big fight with Eggman maybe caused a blip in Tails' world, and so he came searching for Sonic. But that's not really the case here. It actually happened quite a while later. And so I found that to be pretty interesting. I thought it was just kind of an immediate follow-up, but there had actually been a little bit of build-up towards Tails' entrance. It's also worth mentioning that Tails himself is played by his current in-game voice actress, Colleen O'Shaughnessy. And as far as I know, she's the only game voice actress who has been in these movies, at least playing their corresponding character. And that's pretty cool to me. She does a great job. I think she does very well as Tails in the game, and I think she's really good in this movie. She plays off of the other actors in a very fun, entertaining way. But, of course, we'll come back to that. Also, something that becomes apparent pretty early on is, on top of this film already feeling much more like a Sonic game than its predecessor, there's a lot more references jam-packed into this movie towards the Sonic series itself. For example, something I really, really appreciated was there's a local coffee shop in Green Hills, Montana that just opened, and it's called Mean Bean. And if you know Dr. Robotnik's Mean Bean Machine, you, like me, are very much going to appreciate that kind of reference. So with the help of his new red-quilled friend, Dr. Robotnik confronts Sonic at his house, and it ends up in a full-on attack. However, lucky for Sonic, he has a guardian fox watching over him. That's right, Tails comes to the rescue. He saves Sonic and the two of them escape, leading into a really, really fun chase sequence between Sonic, Tails, and Knuckles and Robotnik, showcasing the three animals' really unique and fun powers. And I won't lie, it was really cool seeing those three interact in that way on screen. For example, the fight ends at the edge of a cliff, and Tails saves Sonic by using his flying abilities to take him elsewhere. And while Knuckles is at bay on the cliff, he saves himself from death by flying into the wall and climbing up it like we've seen him do so many times before. And while I thought Mean Bean Coffee Shop would be just a fun little nod to a mostly forgotten puzzle game from the 90s, it actually ends up being a plot element. That's right, Agent Stone himself works there, which is just great. He's such a Dr. Eggman fanboy in this movie, much more so than in the first one. In fact, we get some pretty interesting homoerotic undertones in this movie. Agent Stone, we first see him just making some latte art of Dr. Robotnik in the foam, and it's really, really funny, and I thought it was just going to be a one-off little Smithers, Mr. Burns-esque joke, but they kind of stay true to that throughout the runtime of the movie. It ends up just kind of being a character thing. Jim Carrey also dials his performance up to 11. I mean, he was fun in the first movie, but he is just hamming it up in this film in the best way possible. And I could see some people thinking maybe it was a little too much, maybe he just went a little bit over the line. I buy it enough in this film. I think it's really fun and entertaining, and he was in the mushroom world for an extended amount of time with no one to talk to except this little rock friend he made. So he's gonna come out of that a little loopy, a little crazy. So I thought it was fun. I thought it was a nice development from his role in the first movie. And as long as talking about references is on the table, there's a sweeping shot in which we see a passing water truck that reads Splash Hills. Nice. We also get an appearance from a character that was featured in the first movie, Tom's friend Wade. Sonic and Tails seek refuge in Wade's home, and he takes them to what he calls the Wade Cave, which ends up being, I think, one of the funniest scenes in the movie. Just the back and forth banter between the characters was really enjoyable here. But it's not all fun and games here. We also get some exposition in which Longclaw gives Sonic a holographic message, Princess Leia style, telling him that the Master Emerald is hidden here on Earth.
I love you so much. Goodbye.
No, wait. I won't let you down, Longclaw.
So is that your dad?
What?
It's also made pretty clear to our heroes that Knuckles and Robotnik definitely want that Master Emerald, so this sets our main characters on their mission. And since Tails hasn't actually appeared in this series yet, and he's new to this world, this is actually his first mission out in the field, and he's a little more than nervous, to put it lightly. Sonic and Tails' first real big lead finds them in Siberia, where they think the Master Emerald is located somewhere nearby. And due to harsh winter conditions, the two find themselves in a local bar to find some warmth and escape the winter snow. And of course, they're wearing thinly veiled disguises that eventually fall off, and the locals aren't too pleased. They think Sonic and Tails are monsters, which, who could really blame them given the circumstances? Also, as a quick sidebar, I really like Tails' character in this movie. He's very in line with how he acts in the games. You know, he's a whiz, he's a big Sonic fan, but he's very intelligent, he's got all these gadgets, and I think he works really, really well in this movie, and this scene is one of the key examples of that, because he pulls out this little device, and he does a bunch of research on Siberian culture, and finds out about this tradition called a pavanka, which ultimately ends up being a dance-off between Sonic, Tails, and one of the locals. And as an audience member left in the dark, you don't really know what a pavanka is starting off the scene, and so this big burly guy walks up. He just takes off his shirt, he's got muscles on muscles, and you think, alright, this is gonna be a fight, they're gonna get their asses kicked. But it ends up being a dance-off, and it was really funny and cheesy and just all the right types of camp. And I really liked this scene for a few reasons. A, it sets up something about Tails' character that comes into play later. that I'll mention later on in the video, but it also has a nice little moment of bonding between Sonic and Tails. You can tell they're actually really enjoying dancing together and just kind of having the time of their lives. And it does a lot of legwork to bring these characters closer together. Of course, we know Sonic and Tails, from the in-game universe, but it's not those same characters. The dynamic's different. And so this does a lot to strengthen that relationship. So when stuff, happens later in the movie, it feels a lot more earned. But there's also a nice little reference to the games here in which Sonic does a finishing dance move that's very reminiscent of his Sonic Adventure pose that has become very iconic by this point. They win the dance-off, which of course earns them their freedom and also access back to their Master Emerald map, which kind of got lost in the shuffle of things. And where does the map take them? Well, it takes them to an owl-style Fortress of Solitude. But it's not long before Eggman and Knuckles get the drop on them. However, the two are quick, and they escape in a really cool snowboarding sequence. And if you're fans of the series, something like Ice Cap Zone is going to come to mind when you're watching this, and this is just one of the many examples of this movie feeling like a Sonic game. I had a lot of fun with this scene, and I think it's one of the shining stars of the movie. After the chase ends, Knuckles spills some of his backstory, and it's pretty lore accurate, featuring his Echidna tribe and their ties to the Master Emerald and the Chaos Emeralds themselves. It's pretty clear that Knuckles has drank Robotnik's Kool-Aid by this point. Nevertheless, Sonic does try to reach him, but Knuckles doesn't budge. And although the two furry friends escape, Tails is knocked out by the end of the chase sequence, and Sonic barely manages to rescue him. Knuckles sees Sonic's act of kindness and also simultaneously begins to view Dr. Eggman as a dishonorable person, if you could believe that. Sonic saves Tails by calling up his good friend Tom, who's in Hawaii, and tells him to throw the portal ring while thinking of the mountain that Sonic and Tails are currently on, and the plan works. The portal opens, Sonic and Tails fly through, followed by a bunch of snow from a nearby avalanche, and it completely ruins the wedding in a really funny moment in the movie.
Snow? Oh boy.
And just to spice things up a little bit more, Rachel, Maddie's sister, her entire wedding was a sting operation set up by a military organization. However, this isn't just any military organization, it's Gun. And if you know the Sonic franchise, you know the importance of the Gun military. And I really like this setup. So the military from the first film, turns out all along they were the Gun organization. And Sonic Adventure 2, I think, was the first game that introduced the Gun organization. And I really, really like this setup here. I like that they were kind of setting up Shadow's story from the get-go. Obviously, you could argue that maybe the military in the first movie wasn't meant to be Gun from the start, but I do like that they turned something from the first movie into something greater that would have a larger impact in the eventual third film. So that was some pretty cool world building there. Also, I love the running gag of Gun's general just loving gifting people gift cards. It's really funny, and it comes back into play here.
Something bothering you, Agent?
I just feel a little guilty about what I did to Rachel, sir.
Don't worry about it. We'll send her a gift card.
But shit does hit the fan. Rachel's would-be husband was all part of the sting operation. He himself was an agent of Gun and was lying to her the entire time. So that happens. Rachel, of course, doesn't want to cooperate with them, and all they want is to get access to Sonic and also Tails, who kind of ended up being a surprise bonus for them. And so Sonic and Tails get captured. Rachel and Maddie split up away from the rest of the group, and they use Tails' inventions to fight the Gun military troops and also sneak their way into the holding chamber of Sonic and Tails and Tom. And I really like this scene in the movie. It's an entertaining action scene, I think it's pretty well executed, and it gives the human characters a little bit more to do. As I mentioned before, this movie splits up the Sonic characters and the human characters from the first movie as a means to kind of set up a plot and a B plot, which I think works really well, but of course you're gonna have to bring those two plots together eventually, and I feel like this movie could have easily fallen into the pitfall of putting the human characters on the back burner and having all the focus just be on Sonic and the gang, but they don't do that here. They give the human characters stuff to do, and more specifically, they give the Rachel character something to do. I think that she's the biggest character upgrade from the first movie. If you watch the first movie, really all she does is nag at Tom and just shows that she doesn't really like him, which is funny. I think the actress delivers those lines really well, and I think she herself is funny, but that's really all her character is. She ends up just being a plot device for them to have a hideout, tie her up, steal her car, and just use that for the next scene. However, in this movie, she gets to actually partake in the action itself, and has some pretty interesting emotional stuff too. I mean, her whole wedding was a sham, her husband was a fraud, and so we kind of get to see her deal with those emotions in a pretty entertaining but also pretty believably human way. So I thought that was cool. But this is a family movie, so things don't get too heavy. Rachel and Randall, her fiance, do reconcile and fall back in love again. He said, yeah, the mission started out as a sting operation, but I made the one mistake of, falling in love on the job. And so the two kind of kiss and make up, and that ties a nice bow on that plot line. But the movie has bigger fish to fry. Eggman and Knuckles find the path to the Master Emerald. Sonic also sees the Master Emerald's beam in the sky and runs on water to get to it in a really cool scene. However, he's overcome and washed up on shore near the Master Emerald's location. Eggman and Knuckles traverse through an Indiana Jones-style temple full of booby traps that's guarding the Big Emerald. Now, a cool little fun fact is the temple that the characters are traversing through is actually a recreation of Labyrinth Zone from Sonic the Hedgehog 1, the original game in the series. Man, that level sucked. Eggman plans to betray Knuckles now that they've found the Emerald, but Sonic interferes, leading to a fight between the Hedgehog and the echidna. Sonic faces his fear of water to save Knuckles, and while doing so, he sucks up a bubble to get more air. Yet another reference to that beloved level. The tail end of this scene has Knuckles saving Sonic from drowning, Sonic learning a lesson about responsibility towards others, and Eggman escaping with the Master Emerald. Sonic also invites Knuckles to join his family, and Knuckles is a little apprehensive, but you can tell he's probably going to wear down eventually.
Because being a hero isn't about taking care of yourself. It's about taking responsibility for other people.
Wise words.
Also, it's worth mentioning too that Knuckles is voiced by Idris Elba, which is just awesome. I love Idris Elba, and I really like that he committed to the role in this movie. He's really good here. Meanwhile, Wade is interrogating Agent Stone, very unsuccessfully. And to make matters worse, Eggman has absorbed the emerald and has gained some sort of unearthly power that gives him an auto-tune voice.
Congratulations on your oh-so-temporary sense of superiority.
Eggman frees Stone and ties up Wade in his place. Now, the Master Emerald itself, it actually powers up Eggman. Like I said, it gives him that kind of weird auto-tune voice. He's got a green aura around him, and he becomes kind of like a godlike figure, rather than him using the Master Emerald to power up one of his creations like he would in the game. And quite honestly, I would have preferred that instead. Sonic and friends need to get back to Green Hills, Montana fast, and so they all pile up into Tails' iconic tornado plane. So Eggman does end up using the Master Emerald to power up a creation of his, using himself as a conduit, a roided up version of the Death Egg robot, featuring a Death Egg manual that just so happens to look just like a Sega Genesis game manual. Another nice touch. Sonic distracts the Death Egg bot while Tails and Knuckles scale the machine and climb inside. Once inside the Death Egg robot, Tails uses this invention that he made that creates a bunch of holograms of himself to distract Eggman and make him not sure which one is the real Tails. Which I mentioned before, there was a setup scene in the dance sequence where Tails uses this, and it's more of a cosmetic thing to make the dance look more impressive, but I like that that setup was paid off later for an actual story purpose. And then Knuckles knocks the Master Emerald out of Eggman, causing him to lose his powers. Tom and Maddie pick up Sonic right before he gets crushed by the bot, and they retrieve the Emerald. The Master Emerald was actually entrapping the 7 Chaos Emeralds. The Master shatters, freeing the rest, and it turns Sonic super, just before him, Tom, and Maddie get crushed by the Death Egg robot. Super Sonic then proceeds to beat up on Eggman big time. And like I said in the previous video, I didn't really know much about the Sonic movies. I knew a lot less about this one than I did the first one. You know, I was aware that Eggman was back, he was bald, I knew Tails was going to be in it, I knew Knuckles was going to be in it, but I actually had no idea that Super Sonic was going to be in it, so this ended up being a really pleasant surprise. And while I did think that the Chaos Emeralds came to the gang a little bit too easy, it still was undeniably really awesome to see Super Sonic on screen. Super Sonic confronts Dr. Eggman, who is now powerless and terrified, and is trying to bargain with Sonic, and surprisingly quotes Donald Trump of all people.
What do you say we just let bygones be bygones? I did some things, you did some things. There are good people on both sides.
Sonic, of course, doesn't buy this negotiating, and he defeats Dr. Eggman once and for all. Until the third movie, of course. Sonic, Tails, and Knuckles start their own new order, keeping balance with the Emerald's power. Sonic, Tails, Knuckles, Tom, and Maddie all go back to the baseball diamond that Sonic originally started his journey on in the first movie, and they play a game of baseball and just all hang out, have a good time as a new family, which completes Sonic's loneliness arc in a really satisfying and pretty sweet way, honestly. And the movie ends. We have Sonic, Tails, and Knuckles all coming together as a family. Sonic's relationship with Tom and Maddie is stronger, and Dr. Eggman is defeated again, and will eventually come back with much more of a vengeance in the third film. And it was a really satisfying end. The end credits sequence themselves, once again, are in the style of a retro Sonic game. However, this time, I really liked the change up here. The game footage looks a lot more like Sonic the Hedgehog 3, which was, of course, the first appearance of Knuckles the Echidna. And so I liked that change up and that a little attention to detail. There's another song featured in here. I thought it was fine too. And I guess while I'm on the topic of music, one gripe that I did have with the first movie is once again present here, and that there is a sheer lack of Sonic the Hedgehog music. I mean, maybe there's a little bit more than there was in the first one, but it's pretty comparable to the level in which they include it. Again, I think the music in the movie's fine. I think the score is good. I think it works well, but I just really would have preferred to have game music. But again, that is a nitpick, but I do hope that they improve on that front in the third movie, but I guess we'll see. And keeping tradition with the first movie, there's an end credits scene here, where the gun organization incorrectly assumes that Dr. Robotnik is dead, and they unveil this new project that they've been working on, Project Shadow, which, it was cool. I won't lie. You know, the little Brian inside of me definitely thought it was really neat to see Shadow the Hedgehog being teased here. And I did know about his end credits scene before I saw the movie, but it still was pretty neat nonetheless. And I'm excited to see what Keanu Reeves does with the character in the third movie. So overall, I think Sonic the Hedgehog 2 is a much better movie than the first one. I think it works better as a Sonic movie, and I just think it's a better movie all around. It's a more entertaining journey. I think the stakes are higher in a way that feels natural, but they don't lose the comedy. I really like how comedic both of these films are in a pretty non-forced way. I think all the jokes work pretty well. Obviously, you're going to have, your fart-esque jokes here and there to keep the kids entertained, but I don't think anything really feels out of left field. I don't think they ever really sacrifice the characters. There's never any real moments where it feels like the movie is poking fun or, punching down at the source material in a way that kind of takes away from the story or the stakes of the movie, which I appreciate. I think there's a lack of earnestness in a lot of modern cinema, at least for mainstream films. And I liked that this movie was very set in its story and very set in its ways. It's like there's a blue hedgehog with a yellow fox and a red echidna, and we're going to play it completely straight for the most part. So I appreciated that. And I do like that this movie is giving fans a little bit more appreciation with, some of the references and some of the actual story beats themselves being a lot more in line with the Sonic games. So yeah, I liked Sonic the Hedgehog 2. I think it was a satisfying follow-up and conclusion to a lot of these story setups in the first movie, and I'm really excited about the third film. When I first watched the first Sonic movie, I didn't expect much. I thought it'd be fine, but I was impressed by it in a way that I was surprised by, and the second one even more so. So I'm on board with the third movie. I'm interested to see what they do with it, and I'll be, unlike these first two films, I will be seeing the third one in theaters. So expect a review for that very, very soon. I've been having a lot of fun doing these videos, and I hope you guys have been enjoying them too. So just stick around for the third film. I'll be talking about that very shortly, as I believe it has a mid to late December release. But yeah, so keep your eyes peeled for that one. And as always, guys, till next time, stay tuned.